JD Vance, of course, the Vice President. Have a listen. He's been very, very strong on this whole issue of free speech, in particular, free speech outside America, such as here. We want here on JD's radar. Here he is talking the other...
Yes, ma'am.
In his remarks at the Munich Security Conference, Vice President Vance condemned free speech violations in the UK, particularly. Could you respond? What is your message?
I have an idea. We have the man right here. Come on. Let's go, JD. We're putting you on stage.
Great. Yeah, look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies. But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension, American citizens. So
Britain has just faced one of the most embarrassing diplomatic moments in recent memory. The United States, supposedly one of our closest allies, has openly described Britain as sliding toward authoritarian behavior, not merely troubled or concerning, but dangerously heavy-handed. The blow landed at the worst possible moment, with the report released while America's incoming Vice President, JD Vance, was staying as a guest in the home of the Foreign Secretary. It felt like inviting a friend over for dinner only for them to step outside and criticize you loudly in front of the entire neighborhood before the meal even begins. Washington didn't choose quiet diplomacy or private conversations. Instead, it placed its concerns in an official human rights report for the whole world to see, governments, journalists, and watchdogs alike. What could have been a discreet warning instantly became an international spotlight on Britain's political direction, turning a sensitive issue into a global headline and raising serious questions about the country's reputation on the world stage. And if discussions about British politics matter to you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Dark Britain, because more than 98% of viewers watch without following, even though subscribing is completely free.
West, the transatlantic relationship, our NATO allies, certainly the United States under the Biden administration, got a little too comfortable with censoring rather than engaging with a diverse array of opinions. So that's been my view. Obviously, I've raised some criticism and concerns about our friends on this side of the Atlantic. But the thing that I'd say to the people of England or to anybody else, to David, is many of the things that I worry most about were happening in the United States from 2020 to 2024. I just don't want other countries to follow us down what I think was a very dark path.
This was no casual remark or diplomatic misstep. It landed like a calculated blow to the credibility of Britain's democratic reputation. While JD Vance appeared relaxed, enjoying tea in the English countryside, officials in Washington were quietly delivering a sharp and unmistakable warning: Britain's democratic framework may be drifting into troubling waters. At the center of the dispute was one powerful issue: free speech. American voices accused the administration of Keir Starmer of tightening control over public expression at an alarming pace, pointing first to the forceful reaction following the Southport riots. Critics argued that instead of allowing open debate to run its course, government figures leaned on major social media platforms, including several based in the United States, to remove posts branded as misinformation. From Washington's perspective, that step pushed beyond acceptable limits, raising concerns about government-driven suppression of speech, the very type of behavior Britain has historically criticized elsewhere. The language of the warning was unusually severe, suggesting that some allies now fear this is not a series of isolated decisions, but a pattern that could signal deeper institutional strain.
Administration is so forthright in talking about these issues, no matter who's in the room. But the question begs, Brad, is he right?
I think he's absolutely right about the United Kingdom and their sad decline in freedom of speech and freedom of press. I mean, you have thousands of people who've been arrested over the years because of things they posted on social media. That is not a free country. That is a kind of modern dystopia, an authoritarian state where the government can roll up with the authorities to come get you because they don't like what you have to say. it is sad to see that happen to one of our greatest allies, a beautiful nation with a long history and legacy as a beacon of freedom in the West. And I also appreciate JD Vance calling them out for it. But honestly, it will have to come from within. Their own citizens will have to stop standing for it, stop standing for the censorship, stop standing for the overreach, for the absurd policing. You see video after video where the police roll up on somebody for a crude joke that they posted online, or for asking someone, why don't you speak English, or any other sort of thing that's just fundamentally not a...
The criticism didn't end there, it grew sharper. Officials in Washington also pointed to new public space protection orders that in some areas allow authorities to penalize even silent prayer. The image is powerful. Someone standing quietly with their own thoughts yet facing fines or possible arrest. To critics, that symbolism raises serious concerns about government power edging into personal belief. Attention then turned to the Online Safety Act, which requires adults to verify their age before accessing certain websites, and has sparked debate about the future of encrypted communication. Opponents warn this could weaken the privacy people expect online, where identities and conversations have long remained personal. If earlier concerns had already sounded alarms in Washington, the next issue pushed the reaction even further: Britain's struggle to confront a troubling rise in anti-Jewish hostility. Since late 2023, Jewish communities across the country have reported levels of intimidation and tension not seen in decades, placing mounting pressure on the government of Keir Starmer and intensifying scrutiny from international observers. With incidents so alarming they read like entries in a human rights report, the tension became impossible to ignore. Staff at a London kosher shop forced to defend themselves from a knife-wielding attacker, and in Yorkshire a university chaplain and his family driven from their home by death threats linked to his past service in the Israeli military. These are not abstract statistics or political talking points. They are ordinary families living in fear because of their faith. For Washington, speaking out so directly signals that the issue is viewed not merely as a domestic challenge, but as a matter with human rights and even security implications. Then came the unexpected twist. While accepting British hospitality, JD Vance delivered what many saw as a pointed diplomatic warning, arguing that the United States had made serious mistakes on free speech between 2020 and 2024 and cautioning that Britain, under the leadership of Keir Starmer, risked repeating those same errors on an even larger scale, like a dinner guest calmly explaining the host's biggest past regrets while still seated at the table.
And it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
Faced with this wave of criticism, one might expect the British Prime Minister to respond with firm authority and clarity. Instead, the reaction from Keir Starmer appeared uncertain, almost uneasy. When questioned about free speech, he did not sound like a leader confidently defending a core democratic principle. Rather, the moment felt hesitant, as though every answer carried doubt. At a time when the country needed strong direction, the tone projected caution instead of command. By contrast, the American assessment showed little restraint, setting aside the usual diplomatic softness and delivering its conclusions in direct language. The report argued that Britain now faces significant pressure on freedom of expression, and that officials have not always been held consistently accountable when concerns arise. In a diplomatic arena where criticism is typically wrapped in polite phrasing, such blunt wording stands out sharply. The message beneath it is clear: many in Washington believe Britain is struggling to define where it stands, and whether it is prepared to defend the principles it once championed.
Opposed to lost, but we got along with them also. We have a very good relationship.
And this is where the real danger emerges. Once a nation begins to carry the label of authoritarian behavior, repairing that reputation becomes extremely difficult. Confidence from allies doesn't collapse overnight, it fades quietly at first, then accelerates. Trade negotiations grow more complicated, intelligence cooperation slows, military partnerships are quietly reconsidered, and diplomatic discussions lose their warmth. Partners begin asking whether Britain remains the dependable ally it once was or whether uncertainty has begun to replace that trust. This kind of decline rarely arrives with dramatic shocks. It spreads gradually, subtle yet deeply corrosive, and once established it is rarely easy to reverse. The longer the government led by Keir Starmer resists adjusting course, the closer the country could drift toward genuine isolation. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that this may only be the beginning. If surveillance powers continue expanding, public expression faces tighter limits, and enforcement appears uneven, warnings and critical reports may not fade away. They could multiply, each carrying greater weight than the last. Today it is the United States raising the alarm, tomorrow it could be Brussels, Ottawa, Canberra, or Tokyo. As that chorus of international concern grows, ignoring it, or silencing it, becomes impossible. The question now confronting every citizen is sharp and unavoidable. Are we witnessing a temporary rough patch in Britain's democratic journey, or the active dismantling of the democracy itself? For now, debate, protest, and inquiry remain possible, but such freedoms cannot be taken for granted. Rights once surrendered rarely return without struggle, and history shows that governments willing to suppress voices seldom stop at the first step. At its core, this is the crisis. A nation once celebrated as a global beacon of democracy now risks becoming a cautionary tale. America is no longer applauding. It is sounding a warning to the world. That shift from respect to alarm should jolt every citizen awake, because if this doesn't spark concern, what will? When does silence become complicity? When do people recognize that the freedoms generations fought, bled, and died for are being squandered by careless leaders? The question is unavoidable. Have we already crossed the line into authoritarianism? Or are we merely facing turbulence in the long arc of democracy? Is this a wake-up call, or the final warning before liberty slips away quietly, without drama? History will judge, but only if people today are willing to question, engage, and act. This debate is no longer abstract or academic. It is happening in full view of the world, and every citizen has a stake in its outcome. And while free speech still exists, your voice has never been more crucial. The clock is ticking, and the question is no longer whether Britain's democratic image has suffered, but whether it can still be salvaged. Staying informed is vital, because from this point forward, every development carries weight, and we'll track each one closely. Britain, once the global torchbearer of democracy, has become a warning sign. America no longer offers praise, it issues caution to the world. That shift from respect to alarm should rouse every citizen, because if it doesn't, what will? When does silence cross into complicity? When do people recognize that the freedoms generations fought and died for are being squandered by careless leaders? Have we already crossed into authoritarianism? Or is this simply turbulence in democracy's long journey? Is it a wake-up call, or the final warning before freedom slips quietly away? History will judge, but only if we are willing to ask hard questions and take action. This debate is no longer theoretical. It is unfolding right now, in full view of the world. While the chance to speak freely still exists, your voice has never been more vital. The clock is ticking, and the pressing question is no longer whether Britain's democratic image is damaged, but whether it can still be rescued. Stay alert. Every development matters, and we will track each one as it unfolds.